Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you my review of the Anker Solix C800 Plus. This is a mid-tier, mid-size portable power station with a standard 768 watt hours of battery capacity, but it has an extra powerful 1200 watt inverter along with some unique and innovative features for camping and backup type situations that we'll explore as a part of today's review. So to give you an idea of some of the basic specifications, this unit is 371 millimeters wide. That's right over 14 and a half inches. It is 8 inches deep, or 205 millimeters, and it is 253 millimeters tall. That's 10 inches. It weighs in at right under 11 kilograms, or right over 20 pounds. Now, obviously, one of the things that stands out here is that it does have a very high number of AC outlets for this class of unit. There are 5 AC outlets that are rated at 1200 watts. It has a total of 4 USB DC outlets here, and that includes one 100 watt, USB-C 130 watt USB-C, and then two 12 watt USB-A outputs. It does have the standard DC output, the car or cigarette lighter style, and it puts out 120 watts of power. Now, as far as other specifications, there is no external power brick, so just an AC input here and a standard cord, and then also our input for solar or DC is the XT60 style plug. Warranty on the unit is 5 years, and the price point is $499 US. So as mentioned, some of the overall features of the unit itself: it has battery capacity of 768 watt hours. It does have a 1200 watt inverter, and we'll explore that a little bit more because it is 1200 watts, but then it has surge power, what they call surge pad, of 1600 watts. Now, that's a little bit different than just having a peak, kind of spool up of, say if it's 1200 watts to hit 2400 watts for the startup of things. This goes a little bit further than that, and we'll explore that in some of our tests. It has the ability to charge both at normal rates, but also what they call a hyperflash charging that will allow this unit to charge via AC really fast. You can go from 0 to 100% in right under an hour, which is very impressive. Solar input is 300 watts, which isn't the highest that I've seen in this class, but it is better than many that I've seen in this class. Many of them are limited at 200 watts. Best I've seen in this class is 400 watts, so 300 kind of splits the difference there. As noted about the various ports, there are a total of 10 different ports. It does have app control via Bluetooth that allows you to do a number of different things and also to monitor what's going on with the unit itself, even to remotely monitor it in that sense. It does have one of those unique features that I mentioned, is that inside the top there is a cabinet here where you can open things up, and inside on the Plus unit, now on just the standard C800, this is a storage area. In the Plus unit that I'm testing here, it has some unique features for camping or for power outage. That includes having a couple of these portable lights that are staying charged inside, and so they have the option of operating like a spotlight, as a camping light or a backup situation light, and then also a lower power mode that if you're just wanting some subtle mood type lighting, they stay charged inside of here. And then interestingly, there's also this wand inside of here that can extend out extensively, and there is a place on the top to screw that in and mount it. It's so high that I can't even fit it under here, and so by doing that, it gives you a place to either mount one of these lights, or as we're going to see, something else to get the light up into the place where you need it. So a unique feature there that we'll explore a little bit more in our test. It also does have what has become more and more ubiquitous, and that is a UPS mode, which they claim will cycle in under 20 milliseconds, and we will also test that to see if it'll work for a UPS mode. So how about some of the tests that I ran? Now, typically some of the things that I like to test are some household appliances, things that you might use in a power outage, or maybe you might want to use if you're camping. And so that includes a couple of different blenders. And so I used my more powerful 1100 watt blender, and it drew 923 watts initially, and it's settled down into 842 watts. It ran without issue, which we would expect because it did fall underneath that 1200 watt threshold. Now, where things typically fall apart for this grade of unit is when I try to run my 1500 watt tea kettle. Because it exceeds the power output of basically all of these, and it continues to draw that current in a strong way. Here's where the surge pad came into place. I didn't have to enable any kind of special feature. It was just prepared to do it. And so initially the draw was ramped up at 1477 watts from this. And so near the 1500 watt rating. It was able to handle that fine, and then what happens is that it slowly throttled that back to where it settled in at right under 1200 watts. And I was able to get a boil in just about 3 minutes, which is not much slower than what I see via normal AC power. Most of these units won't run it at all, and for example, there is a feature in some of the Bluetti models that allows them to kind of ramp up in a similar fashion for something like this, though at a lower power rating. And so I found doing the same thing with something like the AC70 from Bluetti. It took a full 5 minutes before I got the water to boil in the kettle, which shows that it was operating with much less power. So in this case, we're able to maintain a very high level of power, and it kept things cool and stable. And I did note that when that surge pad kicks in, the fans ramped way up to keep the batteries cool, but everything ran stable. There was no glitch. It ran through no problem. I was very impressed by that. Now, another test that I do like to do is with a hair dryer. That's a 1700 watt rated hair dryer. Now, a lot of times units like this, they won't even touch something like this. It's just too much draw. And so in this case, when I plugged it in, it initially drew 646 watts. And when it continued to try to draw more than that 1600 watts of rated power in the surge pad mode, the unit shut off the AC port, and so it didn't cause damage to either the inverter or the batteries. That's about what I expected, and so it is useful, but it is only, that surge pad is useful only if the actual continued draw is underneath that 1600 watt threshold. I also tested in terms of its ability to recharge via AC and solar. So when it came to recharging via AC, the normal draw was about 470 watts. But then if through the app, I put it into the mode where it goes into its ultra fast charge mode, it was able to draw over 1,000 watts. It was running at 1,028. And it does give you a little bit of a pop-up when you enable that, to only use it when necessary, because that kind of hypercharging does put more wear and tear on the batteries, and so you might diminish your longevity. So if you don't need it, don't do it. The typical rate is still pretty decent, nearly 500 watts, whereas most of these units in the first generations that I tested, they would draw a maximum of 200 watts. And so we've come a long way since that point, even in the standard mode, and being able to quick charge in less than an hour is very impressive, but only use that where needed. I also tested charging via solar, and while the limit here is 300 watts, what I did find interesting is that it had no issue in actually using one of my 400 watt panels. And so it still only took that charge in at about 300 watts. But what it meant is that I was able to maximize the amount of solar energy going into it. And so I can get quite a fast recharge via solar, which was impressive to me as well. When I hooked up a 200 watt panel, you're dropping down more into typically in the 150, 160 watt range of current. And so I really like being able to attach the 400 watt panel, because it means that even though it can't draw at 400 watts, it will take it all the way up to basically that 300 watt threshold. And so I can get a quicker recharge. So anyway, that was good as well. Now, another test that I did was testing the UPS function. So I connected a computer monitor that just to have something on the screen. I was feeding that from my laptop, but the computer monitor was plugged into AC for the unit. It showed that it was drawing 60 watts. I unplugged the power supply to the C800 Plus to simulate a power outage. And you'll see that on the monitor, there's no reaction at all. There's no flicker, there's no blip. It just continued operating. I ran this test multiple times. I got the same result every time. And so that's really encouraging to me, because I do think that if you have delicate equipment attached, that you are going to be able to just continue uninterrupted, which is the whole point, uninterrupted power supply. You're going to be able to continue uninterrupted and not lose any kind of sensitive data. So let's talk about some things that I like and some things that I don't like. Things that I like is that, as noted, this is a more powerful inverter than is typical for this class. And that just means that there's more things that you can power off of it than you can with most of the competing units. Obviously, I like that very much. I also like the fact that the surge pad technology, it just worked. It worked without me having to do anything. It just was smart in the way that it handled it. And I found it to be more efficient than some of the competing technologies. I also like the fact that with these camping / emergency lights, that they are, the way this is designed, it's got the place where it sits down, it's got little charge points where this attaches and stays in that place even when you're moving it around. And so as a result, these are always charged and ready to go. You know, one of the things that you sometimes run into in either a camping or in particular a power outage situation is that because you haven't been thinking about your backup lights, be they flashlights or whatever, you go to use them and the battery's dead. So I really like the fact that this keeps them charged at all times, and that just means that they're going to be actually useful when you need them. I also like the fact that this telescoping pole here helps to get this light up into a useful place. So maybe if you're in a camping situation, being able to put that up higher means that you're going to get the light up where it's going to illuminate a bigger area. So obviously that's going to be useful. And so I appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that part of this design is it's magnetic in the way that it attaches to this. So by the way, you can rotate it in whatever direction you want. If you want to use it to kind of directly illuminate something here, like I demonstrated using on my electrical panel. But what's interesting is because it uses that magnetic technology, it means these are also flexible and you can attach them to anything metal. And so that includes putting it on the side of your vehicle, so long as there's metal in the side of your vehicle. So if you have a flat tire or you're working in that situation, you can put one or both of these to help to bring light to that area. And so that's useful. Also clever in the design here is there is a little hook that would allow you to hang them, for example, in a tent or something similar. So just a lot of kind of intuitive design that's a part of that. Also useful about this is that ball that's at the top of this, which is useful in its own way, but it can also be screwed off. And so if you screw it off, it leaves a standard 1/4 inch attachment point there, which means that you could put a camera on there. You could put anything that will attach to that kind of universal 1/4 inch expansion port, which means that you could use this as, for filming, if you're not bringing along a tripod or something similar. I also like the fact that there are more AC ports than usual. And that's been one criticism that I've had is that some of the more recent models that I reviewed, they actually have fewer AC ports than what previous models did. And it's been something that I've criticized, so I appreciate the fact that we have got, this is actually the highest that I've ever seen in this class. So that's fantastic. I also like the intelligence in the power output, particularly with the USB-C ports, but with the USB-C or the USB-A ports as well, they're all intelligently ran, and so you're going to get the correct amount of power output that you need for running or charging your particular device. The app itself, it's not super fancy, but it is easy to use, and I have had 0 issues with actually using it. It was intuitive and quick to pick up. And so I really appreciate the Bluetooth app support, and I particularly like being able to monitor, for example, if I am using solar panels and charging this out of doors, which is my preferred way of doing things. Another thing that I think is really clever about the integration on this is the fact that you actually have control over the front LED lighting strip right off the app. So consider in a power outage, you may have this stored somewhere where you can't see to get to it. And so being able to turn that light on gives you some light to illuminate in that space. Or maybe if you're coming back to your tent at night, being able to turn that on allows you to, again, have a little bit of a light already in that area. So just some, again, clever and intuitive things there. I appreciate the fact that it has stellar inputs on both AC and solar, and so that you can get quick charges there. And also I appreciate the fact that the UPS mode seems to work as specified. It's easy, it's intuitive. I don't need to kind of program up something to make UPS function, which I have had to do with some other units. It's just automatic. If it's plugged into the wall and something's plugged into AC and that AC is turned on, UPS mode is engaged. You don't have to think about it. Let's talk about a few things that I don't like. I don't like the fact that there is no IP rating on this. This really seems like a fantastic camping-oriented unit for a lot of reasons, and the fact that it's not IP rated means that it probably could handle a little bit of light rain, but I wouldn't want to, have it out of doors. And, sometimes weather can be volatile. It could start to rain while you're away hiking or whatever, and being exposed, I think I would have more peace of mind if it had some kind of actual rating for being out in the elements. I also, while I appreciate the functionality on top, and so this is not a serious criticism, but some of the competing units do have a wireless charging pad on the top where you can just drop your phone on there. Obviously, we don't have that functionality here, so that's one thing that's lost to accommodate for the camping lights. And so you may love the camping lights, and that may be the killer app for you, but if you think I'm never going to use those, well, unfortunately, neither this unit nor the standard C800 has a wireless charging pad. And so it's one thing that is missed there. The other thing that I will criticize, just because some competitors have embraced it, and that is that there are some units, even at this kind of storage and output level, that do have access to expandable batteries, expansion batteries that allow you to extend the battery life. This one is, at least at this point, doesn't seem to be functional, and I don't really see any kind of actual connection port that shows that it's designed with the thought of expansion batteries in the future. Some of Anker's higher end units do utilize that functionality, so if you want that, you may need to move up to the C1000 or higher units. So in conclusion, this is actually one of my favorite power stations in this class that I've used. I love the fact that it gives you a more powerful inverter, it gives you more AC plugs, and it gives you some extra and intuitive feature points for the $500 price point. So to me, it's a very strong value, particularly because it works really, really well. There's not been anything that's kind of left me frustrated in the way that it actually is incorporated and it actually operates. And so kudos to Anker. I've liked the company for a while for, smaller power stations or adapters. Even I've got some of their Bluetooth earbuds that I really like, but this is their first kind of larger portable power station that I spent time with. And I like what I see here. There's some real thought in the design process, and it's a real value at the price point of $500 US. If you're interested, you can look in the description down below. There are buying links there. There's also a summation of my test and findings available on my website if you want to go check that out. That's linked in the description as well. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.